G'day everyone. We're back with another tutorial. I'm going to get into figure drawing, design and invention once again, a book by Michael Hampton. And after the gesture section, we did that in the last, I think, 3 or 4 videos. He gets straight into head drawing before he gets into anatomy. And I think the head, of course, is a vital thing to capture. I know when I'm doing figure drawing or life drawing that people will do the gesture of the body really well, and then when it comes to the head, they don't really know where to go. They just sort of do their best, and it's easy to tell that they haven't spent much time on learning the structure, um, where things go. They spend a lot of time on the body, but the head, which is just as important in expressing emotion and sign language as much as the body, the head probably does more of that. So it's equally important to put just as much time on learning how to structure the head. So we'll get into this tutorial. It's going to be really long, I think. Well, longer than the other ones, perhaps. I'm not sure yet, but if it's too long, maybe I'll cut it into 2 shorter videos, but let's see how we go. I hope that you did a lot of practice in the last tutorials on gesture and things like that. Now we're going to move on to the crown of the body, I guess, which is the skull, the head. And I think one very helpful tip is I would probably start off with just doing drawings of the skull from different angles. I bought a skull a while back, many years ago, well, a few years ago, and it's really helped to analyze what's underlying beneath all the flesh and skin and fat and muscle of the head. Sometimes, I think pretty much all the time now, before I start drawing or painting a portrait, I'm picturing a skull beneath the subject. So, like always, it's important to start with the foundations and then move on top with all the little details. So I'll start, well, we've got this screen on here of Velitzek's Artistic Anatomy, which shows the skull in 3 different positions. So if I was to begin drawing the head or inventing the head, it's always important to start with a sphere. Maybe later you'll start with something like a square, but we'll follow what Michael Hampton recommends. But the sphere is what he begins with, and a center line for that sphere. So the center line would be going right down your middle of the forehead, down the middle of the nose, all the way down to the chin. What we do, let's say that's 2/3 of the mass. We still have to add our jaw. So the jaw, you can just, so if that's 2/3, you don't have to be precise, but just flesh out a jaw. So the chin down the bottom here. Halfway through this circle is where I think he says is the brow line. Okay, so the brow line is not the top of your eyelids, it's where your eyebrows generally sit. you'll feel on your brow line, it'll dip in really shallow, and that's where your eye socket is. So the eye sockets would be sort of like that, sitting underneath. We'll get into the detailed proportions later on how these eye sockets sit, but just quickly here, the base of this, so we're breaking this head into thirds. So that would be the base of the nose. In between the base of the nose and the brow line, you'd sit your eye socket. So that's just a teaser into the proportions later. Now, the important part in this section is to emphasize this center line that we talked about just not long ago. This center line, it could lie a little bit to the right. And what would that mean? That means that the subject would be looking that way, to their left. I'll give that a bit of a curve, make it feel a bit more organic. Okay, and same thing, if the center line happened to lean towards the left, then the subject would be looking right. The subject would be looking right, which is our left. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so a good exercise would be to just grab a lot of skull references. So let's look at this first skull. Circle of the head. Center line, center line. The brow line, sorry, and the center line. 1, 2, third, the chin. Easy. Let's get to this one. And that's pretty much exactly what we've got there, but we'll go through it again. The brow line. And the good habit is to sort of draw through that sphere. So I'm seeing the brow line there, and if it went all the way around, I'd use dotted lines to represent the other side of the head there. The center line, if you follow my mouse here, is going down the middle of the eyes sockets, down the nose, and down the middle of the mouth to the middle of the chin. So let's follow that. And about a third extra is the jaw. And you'll see that I'll stop the jaw around there. Because if you look at the shape of the skull from side on, let's do this one. Okay, I'll finish that point. The skull from side on, look at that jaw, the lower jaw, I think it's in the mandible. It connects around the center of that sphere. So that's this. If you look back on my iPad, I'll do it in red, sits there. That's the center of that sphere shape if I looked at it from 3/4. Now from the side, just to repeat, we've got the sphere. From the side, the circle can be a bit of you can do your circle and just add a bit to the back. That's what I usually do. We've got the brow line. You can draw that all the way through. And the front is the center line, the profile. From the profile, the side view, the center line represents the front of the face. Roughly halfway, and I'll finish off that jawline. Okay? So I would encourage you this is a very short introduction into Right, we're sketching out the orientation of the skull using the circle, adding the jaw, and having these center lines. So you can use reference. Maybe I use a lot of Pinterest to find reference, but once you get the hang of doing a few skulls, try and do them from different angles. Just play around. So I've put the center line of the, I've put the brow line in, center line of the face, and we're looking up underneath this figure. Okay. Just quickly, quick perspective. Information here is, if you're looking up at this face, then if you've got the, say, a mouth here, nose here, this is called the keystone. Things get progressively closer as they go further away from you. I hope that makes sense. So that's, well, that's a bit further distance, and then things get closer up as they go away. It might not make sense to you now, but a bit later on, if we go into perspective of the head, even the body, this concept will make a bit more sense. So if I did an extreme foreshortened view of the head, I'll represent it as a cube. You know, we're learning how to represent it as a circle and the square shape, but try if you want representing it as a square. But for now, use this method, the circle and the squarish jaw, and later experiment and see what suits you better. So that's the T shape of the face. So if the mouth is there, it'll get low. The nose will get there, and things will get closer and closer as it goes further away. If the more foreshortened it is. But hopefully I can give you a proper example later. Moving on. Okay, he gets into perspective here, but he talks more about, he's talking about the, sorry, I'm trying to erase everything here. Okay. Now, we've got our tubes. Remember when we talked about foreshortening last time in the other videos? That tube is leaning away from us. And we've got a tube. If we draw a tube, I really should make more use of this real estate on the iPad. Okay, I'll do it a bit bigger. This cylinder is moving kind of towards us like that. In regards to the head being on a tilt, let's have our circle shape, and we'll do it in the similar orientation to this. So if you do your wrapping lines, wrap your brow line like so. Figure out where you want your brow line to sit on the circle there. And remember, try and draw through the sphere. Just get into the habit of that. It's good to know where things lie on the other side of the head, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. But for now, get into this habit of drawing through. Okay, I would like the center line. So let's follow this orientation here of the tube. It was like, see this bit here? That's going to be our line down there. And then this wrapping line is similar to our brow line there. Okay. And say I want the jaw to be around here. I'll estimate where the end of the jaw is there. I'll connect this bit here, and you've got virtually a skull that we're looking up at. Kind of looking, it's tilted away from us. Now, if we use this example here of this cylinder towards us, coming towards us, let's try that again. So, sphere for the cranium, the top part of you, the circular part of your head, and then we have the jaw. So, let's try. It's going to be, see this here? I'm following the orientation of what I had on the cylinder. Draw through. I kind of like to, if you haven't noticed, do several lines. It's a bit messy, but it helps me find, if I do some lines like that, I kind of like choose the average, but that's me. Anyway, this axis of the cylinder, I'll add it down here. This will be the center line of the skull. I want the jaw to lie around here. Now, we'll flesh that out. And that is our skull in the same orientation as the cylinder just above it. So you can practice, do a lot of practice of that. And you can add your ears. Where the ears lie is in between this brow line. This is where the nose would be. So if you follow the axis, these two axes, and at the end of the jaw here, you will have the ear sitting like that. And if we come to this one here, the end of the jaw, okay, say the nose is there and you go around like this, you can add your ear. I'll just color it in there. Okay. Oh, sorry, just a moment. So friend trying to call up. Okay, so I would again encourage you to keep looking at skull references, and also in your spare time invent angles and heads. So the jaw, flesh it out. Do another one. Looking down a bit more. Brow line, center line I've put on already. Meeting the jaw, like that. And just keep on doing tons and tons of these. I can't stress enough. I keep saying I can't stress enough, but I cannot stress enough how many times how often you should be doing these exercises of a figure and now doing them with a skull. So now we'll get into proportions. And bear in mind what I'm showing you, what I just recently showed you with the sphere and adding the jaw. I've spent maybe just 20 minutes introducing you to that concept. You're going to spend like thousands of hours following up on that concept and actually putting it to practice. Okay. So that's another piece of advice, which is again, practice. Now we'll get into proportions. he gets into the proportions. And I know there's so many different things you find on the internet regarding proportions, even of the body and of the skull. But I've found Michael Hampton's proportions are the best of the lot. It's easy to understand and fairly basic. And it goes into not just the three masses, forehead, the mask, and the jaw, but it goes into, breaks down each section into smaller sections. Okay, so let's just begin by pointing out these proportions, and then we can look at it with some examples. Okay, so that's that. I'll do it 3/4. Center line of the face. Okay, that's the side plane. I've got the jaw here. I think I might have to extend the jaw a bit, but I will leave it like that for now. So, and again, we'll add this ear that we just sort of briefly touched upon in the last bit. Oh, sheesh. I'll erase a little bit of this so you can see what's going on. Now, okay, let's point out one big proportion here, a very important one. That center line there, the brow line, and the bottom of the chin, that's one proportion there. If we break that in two, so we've got half there, half here. Break that in two, and you have the base of the nose. Okay? And I'd encourage you to write all this down, because unless you've got a photographic memory, this is something you will have to sit down, write down, and study until it is burned into your memory. Okay, now, maybe another color. I'll try green, well, maybe a blue. Okay, halfway between this point and this point, you'll find the bottom of the eye sockets. And remember, it's eye socket, it's not eyeball. You're finding the base of the eye socket, which, if you look on the screen at the skulls, it's these round hollow sockets. Okay, we'll choose another color. Halfway between the base of the nose and base of the chin, we will have, oh, actually, he doesn't break it down like that. He breaks it into thirds, so that's my mistake. If you just roughly find where you would find the thirds on this bottom section here. The top third is where the separation of the lips are. The bottom third is the top of that ball of the chin. If you feel your chin, the top of that ball where it sinks in is this lower third, okay? Now, we'll get up to this top section again. This middle half. Choose another color. I'll choose a green. Okay. This is an important one. This is one bit that a lot of people sort of look over, but it's very important. It's called the keystone. And I believe when, you've got face recognition, software and, say you go through these airport terminals now with the customs, they use photos instead to these machines, computers to analyze your face, comparing it to your passport photo. I believe this keystone area and where it is just around your brow to the top of your nose, where your nose begins. And we'll draw it here. This is the keystone. And that's what the software uses to recognize how close you are to the actual photo that they're referencing. This keystone, it, it, if you feel on your brow and it sort of dips in and then out comes your nose. Okay. So that's your keystone there, a very important bit. Now, one last, it is I'll draw it in with a different color. The hairline. That's not so different. Oh, well, the hairline is roughly one. See, if you break this, see how you got these thirds, another third up from here would be the hairline. Let me see, is that right? I think that's how the hairline sits, but so you've got, oh geez, a third of the way up. Actually, so this is 1/3, second third, this middle section, and 2/3. So obviously everyone's hairline is very different, but generally it's on the upper section of this area. Okay, so you could have a character that looks like a caveman and his hairline is all the way down there. So just exercise some, intuition and figure out where you think it lies on the model that you're looking at. So that's the hairline. Okay. And if I was to flesh this out, we'll add some skull references. You'd have the socket lying here. The nose is it's like a wedge, okay? Sorry, so it follows like this. Should be a wedge like that. I'll get rid of this center line here so you can see. Okay. Now you go out, if we follow this, out, in, out, in. What is that? The top of your lip comes out and then it comes in under that plane of the actual top lip. You've got your bottom lip, which pushes out, which should be catching a bit of light. And then under that lip, you'll feel it on yourself. It goes in and then out where the chin is, and you get a bit of shadow down there because the chin is like a ellipsoid shape. Now inside these eye sockets sit your eyeballs. And how big are your eyeballs? You generally, they're the size of the ends of your nose. See, I'll draw it something a bit brighter. You can see it. No, geez, well, see the end of the nose? I've put those two markers. That's generally how big your eyeballs would be. And if you see that last eyeball I put in, I didn't put it out here. You have to keep in mind that it sits in a bit because the head's turning, okay? It's not straight on like this. The eyes would be moving closer together like that. And you'll understand that concept more just by studying skulls and studying them from three-quarter views, different views, and it'll become part of you, ingrained in your memory. All that knowledge comes with experience. Okay, what else? Just quickly, he doesn't go into it too much in this section, but there are planes that you should be aware of. I'll add one here. This goes from where the top of the ear is to the outside of the chin. And you can try and fit that in if you think you can on the other side. That's an important plane. This will show this part of the face. And you'll see that your face, if I represent that as a cube, you've got the side plane of the face and the front of the face. So this is part of the side. If you draw a elliptical shape in perspective there, that is where you've got if you look at the screen here, see this side of his temple? That's this. I'll change the color. That's this turquoisey bit that I'm drawing there. So that's the side of the skull. And that could, if you continue that could be construed as the side plane of the skull. Okay. Now I don't want to give you too much to worry about now, but we'll get into the planes a bit more, maybe now or later, in this lesson or later. But I'm sure we'll get into it. So if you want to just, I don't know, maybe pause and copy what you see on the screen there. Hopefully that helps you with your proportions. Actually, in the next section, it does go a little bit into the side plane. And we'll go into it again. And we'll go through it again. It's a good habit to, I know when I started drawing, I hated redoing proportions, keep on doing them, but you just got to grind through it until you're happy enough that you know it from memory and you can remember it a year later even, you know? That's how much it should be burnt into your head. Okay, so he goes into the side plane here, what we just talked about, but we'll go through it again. We'll go from scratch. Circle just cranium, draw through. Okay, down here, I'll have the jaw around here. that side plan, that, oh, I've heard Proco, I think this is like the Loomis method, but you've got your sphere. Proco will say, um, you've got the spear, and it's like having a cookie dough and then getting a knife and just cutting off a bit of that cookie dough. So once you lop off that bit, you're left, oops, with this bit. Okay. So you're getting into the habit of finding that side plane like so. I'll just erase this and we'll get back into it. And guys, again, I'm very new to teaching in this way. If there's anything I can improve upon, please just tell me in the comments and hopefully I can improve on that, whatever you suggest. Or if I've got something wrong, totally wrong, tell me. And I'm always here to learn. I'm by no means an expert. I'm forever learning as well. Now, halfway, remember the base of the nose. Oh, geez, why is that so thick? Halfway between the base of the nose and the brow line, we've got sockets. Okay. Now, remember here, this bottom, the jaw part from the nose to the chin, we broke it into thirds, roughly thirds there. There was the separation of the lips. If I just throw in those eyeballs, I'll give you another tip. The middle of the eyeball generally sits on the end of the lip, your lip nodes, the ends of your lips. Bottom lip goes in, and that's the chin there. I think my proportions are no good. This chin should be a bit shorter. Anyhow, let's move forth. Okay, so the chin, finish that off. From there, it moves up, and we'll find the ear like this. Oh, geez, that should be a bit bigger. Okay, remember, so the nose, the base of the nose and the brow line meet the top and the bottom of the ear. This is the section he's going right into, is this side plane. Okay, which is important. So always try and lop off this part and recognize that when you're drawing your skulls, that it's this bit here. If you can look back at the screen and look at the skull, I'm got my arrow hovering over. This would be where you'd find that elliptoid. You can see it here and a little bit on the front. So if I draw it from the front, let's do it again from the front. The brow shape, halfway, nose, chin, halfway, sockets, thirds. I'm sorry, these sockets should be a bit bigger. Lips, chin, down from there to the, okay, the circle would be something like this, if you draw it from front view. So foreshortened. But that, if you look back at the screen at the front view, that is that bit I'm hovering over with my mouse Okay. What else? Halfway, remember, was the keystone. From the keystone to the wedge of the nose. This keystone will stop around there, where it's like just near the inner part of your eye. We've got that there. That's the wedge of the nose and our keystone shape. Very important. Halfway between the sockets, we've got the keystone shape, the wedge of the nose. Remember, and the wedge will go like that. And then the hairline, remember, from the brow to the top of the skull. I'm going to just put it, I said thirds before, but just put it in where you think it looks right. I'm putting mine there. And that's where your hair comes out. Okay. So hopefully that makes some sense. And now we'll be going through it again. I must have got ahead of myself. He's going through the ear now and going into some details of the ear, but let's find it again using the method. Okay, center line, halfway. Okay, let's close out this jaw. Nose, thirds, top of the lip, bottom of the lip, goes in, out with the chin. Sockets. Halfway here, keystone, nose goes out. The wedge of the nose, okay? That side plane of the skull. And that side plane, I think that's where you find your hairline. I think it lies like that. Now, from here, okay, this point here, you've got the brow line, so your ear will sit like so. The other bit that we went into, so you've got this side plane here. You've got this green bit that I've marked in the bottom of where the earlobes sort of sits. The top of the ear, you go from there, make a curvy line towards the chin, outside of the chin, and that's another side plane. Okay? So these two planes are very important to recognize. That's that shape here. Okay? Hopefully that helps you a bit. And with the ear, if we go into a bit of detail on the ear, this ear we're looking at is a little foreshortened. So it's going back away from us. And if you represent it as a block like that, that's how it should look. Now, this is off the top of my head, but I think you can break the ear into 3 sections. So we've got this curvy part on top. Um, okay. I'm going into a bit of depth here, but we've got the first section here where you can stop that line with the top curve. What else? There's something called like this. If you put in a wedge there, I'm not sure what it's called. Jeez, I should have looked it up, but you can have a look. And then in this middle section of the ear, you've got like the hole where it goes into the proper hole. There's like a hollow that goes into a proper hole. Okay, this is your earlobe. And if I take away these lines, it should look a bit more like an ear in perspective. Okay. So that would be connecting to the side of the head, obviously. He represents the ear at the most basic form as kind of like half a heart. Okay. And then his next representation, if it was to be viewed in 3/4, if you start with a foreshortened box, okay, you've got the ear in 3/4 going like so. It's like a ribbon. Okay. And then from behind, so this is side, 3/4, and from behind, the skull, lop off the sides. You'll have something like, because the ear goes away from us. This is from the back. And we've got all these other parts of it here. Sort of like a speaker. Okay. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing ears from perspective. And unless you're doing hyperrealism, you don't have to go into too much detail. You can even study comics or cartoons and see how the artists shorthand the ear. Okay, now this keystone shape he's gone into again, and we can look at that further and also have a look a little bit about breaking down the nose into its different shapes. So erase this. Okay, again. Spear, brow line, center line of the face, jaw. Let's find that side plane there. Connect the jaws into wedge of the nose, breaking the thirds. Okay, half of this is the bottom of the eye socket. And what are we looking at here mainly? The keystone. Okay, so from there, base of the nose, halfway in between the base of the sockets and the base of, and the eyebrow line, halfway is where the keystone shape lies. if we're looking at this keystone front on, it would, geez, it'd be shaped like that. But because we're looking at it 3/4, I've got more of an angle of the part that is closest to me. So we've got it here. Like that. Out comes the bridge of the nose. Down towards this bottom line, I'll finish off the wedge of the nose. And that's what we want to look at the moment. So base of the nose and the keystone, which goes in. I think it goes in like that. So you got in, if you look up here, in, and then out for the bridge of the nose. And then you've also got underneath the nose, which at some angles you can see. So that's essentially what I've drawn in the center of the face there. If we take a look at the wedge of this nose, I'll have a look at his example. So he's got a wedge. You can just practice a bunch of wedges if you want. These are the wedge shapes. This is the foundation of the nose. So if you break that nose into 3 sections, I think this is where this bottom section is where you would find the ball of the nose. And it goes out like that. It's the bulbous end of your nose. Okay, so you follow the middle and then the middle back, and then you've got the top part above your lip. We're going to put in these holes, well, the nostrils. Okay. So let's do another example. And these noses always come in different shapes, but we'll just practice with some generic noses. Okay, so if I'm looking at a bridge of the nose on his example here, I'll just draw the wedge for you guys. The keystone would be coming up, well, yeah, like that. And I'm looking up the nose here, okay? So if I broke it into thirds, this would be that bulbous part. And it will come in to that, I think it's called the septum, the little divot in between above your upper lip. And with the nostrils, and there you go. See, there's this circular section here that is still part of like your upper lip, I'm guessing. And then, but this, the outsides of the wings of the nose will go up and in. Do you see that? Same as here. The wings of the nose come up. You've got contour there. But this bit is in shadow because it's going up and it's covered by all this cartilage of the nose wing and stuff. So if you draw lips there, you can draw like a rhythm like that to show you where it sort of wedges into the nasal bone. Hopefully that's making sense to everyone. Okay. Now, his next section goes into, it's a bunch of drawings of eye sockets and eyeballs. But I think I'll just go into the very, very basic foundations of building up the eye. So say you've got your eye socket like this, and you've got an eyeball. Okay, just it's going through like that. This is the eye socket if it was a skull. The eye, this is going to be, okay, I'll do two. Socket and eyeball. The, let me see, this bit, I've got it the wrong way. Sorry, just bear with me, guys. It's been a while. So, I've got the inner tear duct, say, let's put it here, this dot. This is the top border of the eyelid. And then it's the bottom. Same for here. Okay, that's why I drew this line. It's, this top bit will sort of follow down where this line crosses the eyeball. There, like that. Okay. And you can draw your pupils in. You don't really draw your pupils right, like showing all that white around it. Generally, part of the eyelids covering the main pupil iris bit of your eye. Okay. Now, let's get into this a little bit deeper, and we just focus on the eyeball and eyelids. The tear duct is shaped like that. And we're looking, this bottom part, you will see the bottom plane of it, of that eyelid. Okay. Now, if you're looking at this eyeball as a sphere, okay, and a light is coming from the top there, then this sphere would have shadow kind of like this. Okay, would you agree? Now, how do we apply that to this eyeball? This whole bottom lid, if the light's coming up here, then this would be in shadow. And my mistake here was this would be in light because it's facing the light. That top border of the that eyelid, the bottom eyelid, if that's what it's even called. So you've got the light hitting this, and then it goes under where it should be dark. Now we can even get a little bit deeper. Hopefully you get that concept, and that can move us on to the eye socket. Actually, I'll draw the head. It's better for reference. Let's try black. Head. Jaw. Hairline. Zoom in a little bit. So halfway between the nose and the bridge is where our eye sockets lay. If you look at an eye socket from this angle, I'm not drawing it out like that. This is this eye socket, roughly like this. And this eye socket, if you study the skull enough, it's kind of shaped like that because it gets into the cheekbones. Okay? That's the brow here. Oops. Okay. So the eyeball is about the size of the base of the nose. Okay? Two of the eyeball's a bit small, but let's see how we go. In between, you remember, is our keystone. Now I'll zoom in. Say the eye line. The center of the eyes are there. Top lid. I'll draw the brows. Yeah. The eyes are very small. Let me extend this out a bit. Now this is the plane of the cheek, and it's facing up towards the light. Now the eye socket. Say we've got our brows here. The light, again, coming down like this. So the upper eyelid should have some light coming onto it. The eye socket comes in, so you'd have some shadow. Okay. So this is, if you don't press too hard, but above your eyebrow and onto your eyeball, the brow goes in, and that's your eye socket. If you look at here on the screen, we're drawing the eye socket going in, and that's what that shadow is. Now remember the sphere of the eyeball. So if the light's coming from here, we'd be getting light because this is facing down, sort of. The other side. Some people have deep set eye sockets, I don't, so you wouldn't see so much light. Plus, you would see more light on this plane there, but let's say it's a well-proportioned individual. Shadow for the bottom eyelid because it's going, remember this. And then here is light. Why? Because the cheek, this plane, is facing up. Okay? Do you understand that? Oh, actually, I have to make a mistake. I should be highlighting at the top shelf of that eyelid is catching light. You'd probably see a boundary light. Okay? So that is a quick intro to the eye. Okay. What else can we check out? The denture sphere. This is an important concept. The denture sphere is, okay, I've seen it represented different ways, but if you've got your head, okay, it's a very quick one. Nose, thirds. Okay, so if we're representing this mouth area, he says it is, you can find like a round shape that can represent this entire area. Okay, so again, if there was a ball, we'd get shadow going down like that. Base of the nose. Okay. And this is the ball. This nose would be casting a shadow onto that ball as well. And you've got the separation of the lips. However, other people like to represent this ball shape as a tuna can. So it would be, that's the base of the nose, and the can, well, be shaped like that. Okay. So the point of this is, say you're looking at this mouth area from a higher angle. I'll just rough in something quick. Nostrils. Okay, that's the center line of the nose. I'll follow it. The actual center of that ball should be around there. If I'm using the nose as the reference. Okay. Now let's rough in a mouth shape. The top lip would sit like so. Be in shadow. The bottom lip. You don't have to draw all the way across for the bottom lip, because if you do that, it kind of looks like a cartoon, or too much of a cartoon. So you just hint at that lower bottom lip. And remember, it goes in, so we might get some shadow, and it comes out for the chin. Okay? Let's try another angle. How about we get into the shapes of the actual lip? So I'll do it in red. Lips. Okay, so you can represent, he says, the top lip with the letter W, and the letter M, and the bottom lip with the letter W. And what does he mean? Say that's your center axis. You go and create yourself the fancy looking letter M, and then fancy W. Okay? You've got this divot here in between your top lip, and add a bit of flesh if you like, because your lips are very tender. Give it some fleshiness. The top lip most of the time it's darker because it's like a shelf going away from light. This is the bottom lip, and then chin. Okay. And then underneath that bottom lip, we've got that shadow, and then you've got your chin down here. Now, if you really want to get into, he doesn't go into it, I don't think, but he's like bean shapes that are under the skin, and they can help you guide where the actual ends of the lips crease out into the skin. So this is a shape like that, where the top lip curls in, and sometimes you could get some shadow like that, depending on how pronounced that little node is for the individual. Okay, so that is lips in a nutshell. He's got a lot of examples of drawings of his that just focus on eyes, noses, and lips, something you should all be doing after this. And he's got a complete line drawing, which we can go into quickly at the end if I've got time, but we've got just two more things to go through, which will be the profile of the head. And I've finally got some image for you to look at on proportions. So here, I want to flip this, but I'm not sure how. Edit? Not. Oh, actually, there we go. So let's get into the proportions that we did before, that from the side. And let's say we've got our halfway, okay, the middle of that ovoid shape is the brow. 1, Let's put this to be the nose, base of the nose. This on this, that's the chin. Remember the node from there. That'll be the jawline. Remember the ear is the base of the nose and the brow. So we put it in there. And I'm not putting it straight like that. I'm going to put it on an angle like you see in the picture I've got on the screen. Break this into thirds. Let's see some thirds, actual thirds. Be like that. That is the break or the separation of the lips, bottom lip, and the chin. Okay. Halfway between the brows and the nose, eye socket. That's the brow. And hairline I'll put there. Now, keystone, there we've got that there. Comes out for the nose. And let's say I put the eyeball in like so. On top of the eyelid. And we've got ourselves a profile. Remember this plane from here to the chin. And then there was this plane from here, which is the side of the head. Actually, that was wrong. It's like this. And all of this can be side plane. Sort of where that's the base of the neck. And that would be going out like that. Okay. Now, what were we going to go into? Yep. So there's these, see, I told you to draw the jawline from the earlobe to the chin like that. But what I've noticed when I have studied is, see this separation of the lips or around here, the bottom of the lip. You go down there and that follows the jawline a bit better. So you go down and then make your way to the chin. Okay. What else is there? He mainly emphasizes how important it is to find this side plane. And also when you're looking at the head in profile, but from an angle, say we're looking up at it, you're going to see a shape, something, oh wait. You're going to see the bottom of the chin. Well, the plane, well, I'm covered with beard hair, but you're going to see a plane underneath the chin like that. And it's a pretty difficult area to capture, but it's basically, if I was to look up under the figure, like under the head, that's your chin. This is your, that jaw area here. And say we've got the pit of the neck here. You just close out that structure like that. Chin, mandibles, which is that thick jaw bone there. And then from there, we're meeting the pit of the neck, and you got your collarbones, etc. Mouth. So hopefully that concept makes sense. So he doesn't really go into this that much, maybe later on in the book, but this shape here that I'm putting in green is very important. And then later on, when we get into more anatomy, there's another part, which is like, I think it's, these are not strong colors, are they? You've got your larynx, I think it is. And that'll really give your head, head's a lot more believability. It's like the Adam's apple on the guys. Okay. But for now, practice the different profiles, well, side profile, front and 3/4. And then when you've got a bit of confidence, try it from looking from above, from down below, etc. But let's analyze this image on the screen here. We've got the proportions. This would be maybe Andrew Loomis, I'm not sure, but remember I put on a bit more of an elongation to the egg shape. Halfway. Nose. Okay. One with the chin. Split it into thirds. See, I found that separation, and then I made my move over here, sockets. What else was there? Okay, halfway keystone. So that's that, and it comes out to our nose. And the brow, this is the, okay, that spear, if you look on here, again, on the side, let's turn that around. There, that's what this is here on the iPad, is this bit here, this temple area. Go back to the old photo. Okay. So let's analyze this. He's got his ear sitting about on the brow line, which we've got. The base of the ear sitting on the nose line, which is what we've got. If you break this into thirds, you've got the separation of the lips. And then you've got the top of the chin. Okay. This side plane. That side plane that I've just drawn on goes from this area here down to the chin, and he's got a cheek bone to kind of represent that. And I'll show that there with this thick red. What else has he got? So, yeah, we elongated a bit, and that's sitting roughly correct. The back of the neck sitting here. The chin goes in a bit and then down. It doesn't go down like that, obviously. So it goes in, and according to this Loomis image, see the end of the eyebrow? You've got to be looking out for these connections. So with these eyebrows there, you go down, and that's about where I had the neck, the chin plane under the chin coming out. Okay. So, and then the top of this sphere is where this hairline would be. Hair, sideburns, and let's get the eyeball head. Right. Okay. That's all okay there. And another series of drawings. He's thrown in tons of examples of head drawings, from skull drawings to fleshed out heads. And then he gets into the back of the head, and that is our tutorial complete. So the back of the head, center line. Now, you've got the base of the skull sitting around there. Remember, we chopped off the ends of the spear because we've got the side planes of the head. And remember, the ear from behind kind of looks like a speaker. Look. Okay, so from there, he's got his neck muscles. Now, we've got the spine down here, and around here is that bony C7 we talked about in the last lesson. There's two bands of muscle here, and I think it's the trapezius. This goes into the scapula. And you've got one identical one on this side. Okay? This will be in shadow. That's the jaw at the front. Just to make this pop a bit more. So those two, you can feel it, kind of feel it on your own neck, but there's a divot, a pit down here. And if you've got the head leaning, tilting to one side, let's say it's going like this. You'll have this active sides that is flexed up a bit. That is flexed. They use on me. You always have to be aware. Later on, we'll get into it more, but always be aware of the active side and the passive side. So the passive side is this, where it's not doing anything. This active side is flexing the neck muscle, so the head can lean to one side. So this is squashed and is stretched. If it was to sit on the scapula like that. So always be aware of what don't only look at the body as just an outline. Think of it as a machine. This machine has this active side, so you have to compress. These muscles are working, so you've got to compress them. This one is stretched. So look at the body, the way it's moving, and have it in the back of your mind what muscles are contracting to make it move in that way. Okay. So now what I'll do is finish this up with, let's see how long we've been doing. An hour and 30 minutes. Maybe I'll just use the principles that we've just learned now to show you an example of how you can start drawing heads from reference. So this is one by Nikolai Fechin, who's a really great painter. I think he immigrated to America maybe in the 40s. This is a wild guess, but he was really a great draftsman of the figure and the head. Okay, now I'll use a black pen. See what I've got here. Okay, so start with, I'm using it as reference. Always keep in your mind that you're using your image as a reference and you're not going to copy it like some sort of photocopier. And I'm going to draw the eyebrow line, the front plane. So if I'm looking at this figure as a kind of boxy shape, it's like this. And whatever plane your eyebrows are on, so will be your nose and the chin. Okay, so I'm going to say that, and a lot of it is also feel. You'll just do what feels right to you. So this, I'm feeling this shape of the front here, the mask of the head. Okay. So what's the brow? Roughly in between the brow and the chin is the base of the nose. Let's see, want to put it like that. Halfway base of the, see, I'm not drawing eyeballs. I'm constructing the skull first. And I'm looking at his eye sockets, what I perceive them to be under all this flesh. So I'm looking at this, see this big structure here, and below that eyelid is where his eye socket would be. And the same for this side. So it goes in, out, and like this. So I'll represent that a bit better. Right. I'll rush this, so it won't take too long. In between the eye socket and bottom of the eye sockets and the brow, I'll lay in that keystone. And I'm seeing it evidently over here. Okay. And then I'll refer to my reference and I'll flesh in something I see there. The nose. I think the bridge of the nose I can see is coming out. You can see this flame here. And I'll mark it out like this. The wedge, this is our wedge. What can we get onto now? Okay, the jaw, because this is slightly foreshortened, remember, further, closer, closer. This jaw area I should have made shorter. So I'll fix that now. Okay. Break it into thirds. What I see as thirds. And I've got a mouth line like so. What else did we get into? Remember the temple. I can see a plane here, which would be his temple. And if you study the skull enough, you'll be able to identify that on the figure as well. So I'm drawing this whole spear section. Okay. Now, remember, we've got, if we follow this around the base of the nose and the eyebrow, we'll have the ear. And it's going out of this guy's eyeballs like this. So, okay. So the ear would be shaped like this. I'm perceiving it like this, but on the figure, in this image, it's going like that. And I'll explain a bit more on that later. It's because I'll just go by what I know. And if I represent the ear here, sitting as a boxy shape, it'd be like that. So that's what I've done here. Okay. And we'll work on that in a bit. Behind the neck, this is the skull still, is where you find his neck. And his hairline, we're going with the orientation of this, everything here, like this. And we've got the hairline roughly here. Which gets into that. I'm moving down a bit. And the hair over here as well. Okay. So I'll just put in that quickly. Now what else? Let's get on to remember these two planes. We found this plane of the side plane of the head, and now remember from the top of the ear to the chin, we have another plane. And what I didn't mention before, sitting on that plane is your cheekbone, okay? And I'll point it out here. This is the cheekbone area. So I'm drawing it like this here. And I've really emphasized it I'll knock it back a little bit actually. Okay, and if you follow this rhythm just use your hand to help guide you, and you can find the other cheekbone on the other side. You see it there? That's where it is there. So let's lay in the eyeballs. If I look at the figure, I'm not looking at the eyelids, just try and picture this golf ball of an eyeball. Don't worry about any details, just picture the golf ball of an eyeball. And on this side, the golf ball starts around the wing of the nose. Do you see I'm making that relation there? So around there. And it's angled this way, so make sure it's slightly higher than the other eye. On the actual image, it's more straightened out, but because I started more of an angle, I'm going to commit to my drawing. And remember, just using the fetch and drawing as a reference. And maybe let's work from the center out. So ball of the nose, and you can see he's got a very long part that tip of the nose is very long. He's got the wing of the nostril, and remember this little circle here that we put on under the nose before? I'll use that as a guide to tell me where to stop the nostril. Okay, there. I'll erase some bits. This bridge of the nose. Give us some white for you to look at. Okay, continue on. The mouth. So if I line up the edge of his mouth with the inner bit of his eye, I'll have my reference there. So I've got the node there, and this one sits about the outside part of his eye. I'll put in those nodes. I'll put in the separation of the lips. I'll also put in his bottom lip is not so fleshy. I'll knock it in there. He's got these slight shadows here. Okay, I better hurry up with this. Now the eyes. It's got a dark line to emphasize the heaviness, the weight on that. Okay, let's work on this far eye. Let's see a shape like that. And if I go across to here, that's where that one will sit. Okay, now let's put in the eye pupil. Now see the shelf. You'll see the shelf of his lower eyelid. So easy to distinguish here. And then under the shelf, it gets a bit darker. The top shelf sits on that iris, kind of. And then the bottom shelf and the darkness under. And I'll darken that in. Okay, there's a crease here that I'm going to darken, and that is here. I'll make it a bit closer together, like what I see on the reference. This cheek comes out and in. This brow is shaped like so. Darkness of the eyebrow. And then because it's away from the light, it sees a bit of darkness too. Okay, now the other eye. What I'll do, it also a bit darkens down there and on the keystone front there. Too dark there. The other eye. Let's make sure things are symmetrical. I'm looking for this crease of the eyelid sitting on the socket. Now, upper eyelid, pupil, lower eyelid, again, you can see how it's light. That shelf is light, and then it gets darker underneath. So I'll emphasize that darkness underneath. So he's wearing, I don't know, eyeshadow. And I'll emphasize, yeah, that was like large, I think. Now, his eyebrow, there's a bit of socket here that's in shadow, the eye socket. The eyebrow, the actual bushy, hairy bit, I'll put in there like so. Why am I putting a bit of darkness in the white of the eye there? It's because, say, you've got your eyeball, you've got the eyelid at the top. The eyelid is going to cast a tiny bit of shadow onto the eyeball. So just be aware of that. That's why if you look on the reference, it's darker up the top of the eyeball and lighter at the bottom. Now, we'll get rid of some of this, some of our guidelines. It's probably good for you to leave your guidelines just so how you realize how you came to the final piece, like a roadmap of what you went through. Okay, now the mouth. Let's get onto the mouth. There's a bit of a shadow. I'm looking at the top lip now. Shadow from, remember the M shape? And it goes down. And you don't have to draw every single detail. Put in what you think is minimum to send across the message to whoever's looking. Okay, so I've just hinted those lips in. And there's some final, oh geez, it's a bit dark. I'll hint at some shadow. This is the side plane. Hint at that, hint cheekbone. And there's a bit of shadow there. Under the nose, I'll knock that down a bit. And so you can see, of course, it's not exactly the same as this fetching, but what I'm trying to tell you is just use these images as reference so you can invent your own heads. You get more used to inventing your own heads. Okay. Where's the other side of that neck? So if I'm drawing through that sphere, I've got that side. I'm trying to picture where would this cross? It would cross around there, so we'd have a neck, front of the neck there. And he's got to, yeah, always finish off your head portraits with at least a neck. Don't just let it be some egg shape on the screen with some moon face. But okay, I'll get onto this ear a bit. So for that, and the earlobe. Now I'll shape it a bit more, shape it in a way that looks more like what our reference is. So she's too dark and thick. Okay, so I'm going to finish up this tutorial. Well, this one had to be a long one. Even though I went through each part of the head a bit, well, briefly, you can't there's no crash quick course on it. This is probably as quick as it gets. The rest is taking what you've learned here, putting it into practice, and also not only using the Hampton book and what I'm teaching as reference, but see what other people say. And because this might work well, but then you might find an even better solution to figuring out how to draw the head or even the figure. But I've learned so many different methods. I wish I could just have got the lessons that I understood the most straight away. But then, having said that, there's little tips and tricks you pick up from other people that in essence, you sort of invent your own method of doing things. Like you can go to uni and they teach you one method that only the one teacher you've got knows. But on the internet here, you can teach yourself all these tons of different methods. So I encourage you to keep on looking at different educational resources. And most importantly is just to keep practicing. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and I hope you enjoy this one and it's helpful. Take care.